Ladies and gentlemen, you've been with someone for a while, things are going well, but then out of nowhere, intimacy starts to slow down. You can feel it. There's a shift. Maybe it's been weeks, months, or even longer. And let me tell you something. This isn't just about the physical side of things. Oh no, this is about the emotional shift that starts to take place. You might notice her acting different, her energy changing, and you start to ask yourself, what's going on? Is she starting to pull away? Well, let me tell you something. You're not imagining it. When a woman hasn't had sex in a long time, it triggers some powerful reactions, both within her and in your relationship. And if you don't understand what's happening, that gap can get wider and wider. She might start acting differently, emotionally distant. Or you might even notice her looking for validation somewhere else. But here's the thing. This is your chance to understand why she's doing it, what it means, and how you can fix it before things spiral out of control. Stick around, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to break down the 6 signs you'll start seeing if your woman hasn't had sex in a while, and why you need to pay attention to them, so you can turn things around before it's too late. When a woman hasn't had sex in a long time, the first thing you need to understand is that it's not just a physical thing. This is about an emotional shift that's happening within her. And believe me, it's powerful. Sex isn't just about the act itself for women. It's about connection, intimacy, and feeling valued. So when that part of the relationship begins to fade or is ignored, it starts to affect other parts of her emotions, her mindset, and ultimately the dynamic of your relationship. It starts subtly at first, but over time, if things don't change, it becomes more noticeable. The first thing you're likely to see is that she starts to withdraw emotionally. Now, before you jump to conclusions, this isn't her trying to punish you or push you away, although it may feel like that. It's her way of dealing with the growing gap between you two. She starts to emotionally protect herself, which in her mind is a survival mechanism. When the physical intimacy disappears, it creates a void that she might not even fully understand. It's like she's telling herself that if she withdraws, she won't get hurt as much. But the reality is that emotional withdrawal in this context is a defense mechanism. She might start avoiding deep, meaningful conversations. You might feel her becoming distant during normal interactions. She's there physically, but emotionally, she's checked out. This isn't about her being cold-hearted or mean. It's her trying to protect herself from feeling rejected or unimportant. If she's feeling ignored in the bedroom, her emotional distance is her attempt at making the relationship bearable without letting herself get too attached to something that's not fulfilling her needs. Now, the key thing here is that she may not even be aware of what's happening because sex and emotional intimacy are tied together for her in a way that many men don't fully realize. As a result, she might try to justify her emotional withdrawal by focusing on other things. Maybe she says she's just busy or stressed at work, but deep down, she's craving that emotional connection and validation that comes through intimacy. The longer this goes on, the more she might start feeling insecure or unsure about the relationship. You need to realize that this isn't just about the lack of sex. It's about the lack of attention, affection, and closeness. It's about you too not finding a way to reconnect in the way that once worked for you. The more this happens, the harder it will be to break the cycle. And believe me, it will get harder. The emotional gap between you and her will widen. And what starts as an emotional distance can turn into a physical one too. She'll begin to lose faith in the idea of physical intimacy bringing her closer to you, and that's a dangerous place for a relationship to go. So The first thing you need to do when you notice this emotional withdrawal is take responsibility for the situation. It's easy to point the finger and blame her for not being emotionally available. But the reality is, she's probably just waiting for you to make the first move. She wants to feel wanted again, not just physically, but emotionally too. And if you let too much time go by, she'll start to feel as if you're not that interested in her in the way she needs you to be. The key is to communicate openly and honestly. You need to let her know that you're aware of the shift and that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get things back on track. But here's the catch. You can't just talk the talk. You need to walk the walk. It's not enough to say, I'll try harder or I'll make more of an effort. You have to show her through your actions that you understand the importance of emotional intimacy in the relationship. That means carving out time for one another, showing appreciation, being affectionate, and yes, getting the physical aspect of things back on track too. If you don't address the emotional side of things, though, no amount of physical intimacy will fix the problem. The longer you let the emotional distance grow, the harder it will be to bridge the gap. Eventually, she'll start to feel as though the relationship is falling apart, and she'll be left with the painful realization that the connection she once had with you isn't what it used to be. At that point, she may start questioning everything, and that's when things really begin to break down. So pay attention to the signs. When you notice her pulling back emotionally, it's not just about missing the physical intimacy. It's about a deep, underlying need for connection and affection. And if you want to save the relationship, it's time to step up and make her feel valued in a way that goes beyond just the physical. She needs to know that you're emotionally invested, that you care, and that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make her feel like she's your priority again. If you can do that, then the government, they rode to healing whatever's gone wrong and bringing the intimacy and connection back to the relationship. When a woman hasn't had sex for a long time, it can lead to an emotional shift in the relationship. And this shift is more complex than just physical intimacy. A woman's needs go far beyond the physical act of sex. Sex, for many women, is deeply connected to emotional closeness, affection, and feeling seen and appreciated by their partner. When that part of the relationship becomes dormant, it creates a void, and this void can begin to affect many aspects of her emotional and mental well-being. The first noticeable change is often a shift in how she expresses her emotions. She might become more withdrawn and distant, and her behavior can start to reflect this growing emotional gap. You may notice that she's less talkative, less affectionate, and less engaged in the daily interactions that once made your relationship feel warm and connected. It's not that she doesn't care about you anymore. It's that she is beginning to feel emotionally neglected. When the emotional connection isn't being nourished, she may subconsciously start to guard herself, thinking that if she distances herself emotionally, she won't be hurt. What happens next is that she starts looking for ways to fulfill her emotional needs elsewhere. This doesn't necessarily mean she's looking for another partner, but it does mean she may start seeking attention and validation from other areas of her life. She might get closer to her friends, throw herself into work, or even dive into hobbies as a way to compensate for the lack of emotional intimacy in her romantic life. These distractions can be a form of self-protection. By avoiding the situation with you, she's trying to shield herself from the hurt of feeling neglected. As this emotional gap continues to grow, it starts to affect her confidence and sense of self-worth. Many women tie their sense of value to how they feel in their relationships. especially when it comes to physical affection. Without that validation, she may start to feel unattractive or undesired. This lack of emotional and physical intimacy can lead to feelings of insecurity. If she doesn't feel desired or loved by her partner, it can trigger deep, rooted feelings of inadequacy that she might not even fully recognize. At this stage, you might also notice that she's not as affectionate as she once was. The little gestures, like holding hands, a kiss on the forehead, or cuddling, might have become less frequent. She may no longer initiate physical touch, and if you try, she might seem distant or uncomfortable. This is her emotional shield coming up. She may not want to engage in physical affection because it reminds her of the deeper emotional issues that are currently unresolved. And without the physical closeness, she may start feeling even more disconnected, creating a vicious cycle that's hard to break. One of the hardest things to witness is when she begins to lose hope in the relationship. If she's been waiting for the intimacy to return, but it doesn't, she might start to believe that this is just how things are now. She may feel like the connection between the two of you is irreparable. This belief can be destructive because once a person starts feeling like the relationship is beyond repair, they may start emotionally checking out. She may stop investing in the relationship in the same way she did before, and the effort to fix things starts to feel one-sided. However, it's important to recognize that this emotional withdrawal doesn't mean she no longer loves you. It simply means she feels emotionally unfulfilled, and as a result, she's protecting herself. But here's the thing. If you don't act quickly to acknowledge her emotional needs, you risk her becoming so emotionally detached that it becomes difficult to ever rebuild the intimacy you once shared. If you want to change this dynamic, it starts with taking responsibility and not brushing off the issue. You can't just assume that time will fix everything. Time alone won't heal the distance between you two. What it takes is action. The first step is showing her that you care, not just through words, but through actions. It means taking the time to genuinely understand her needs, both emotionally and physically. Show her that you recognize the distance and that you are willing to make the effort to bridge that gap. This doesn't mean bombarding her with apologies or trying to fix everything in one go. It means consistent, thoughtful efforts to reconnect. Start with emotional intimacy. Take the time to listen to her, understand her frustrations, and validate her feelings. Let her know that you see her not just as a partner, but as a person whose emotional well-being matters. Once that emotional connection starts to rebuild, the physical intimacy will follow naturally. But it all starts with showing her that she's more than just a body to you. She's someone whose emotional needs are just as important as her physical ones. If you can make her feel seen, valued, and desired emotionally, you'll begin to heal the rift that has formed. The key is consistency. If you make her feel like she's your priority again, emotionally and physically, she will start to feel the connection once more. You have to be willing to put in the work, because if you wait too long, that emotional void might become too deep to fill. But with patience, understanding, and consistent effort, you can bring her back and rebuild the relationship on a stronger foundation. When a woman hasn't had sex in a long time, she can begin to feel more vulnerable, especially emotionally. Many women tend to seek emotional fulfillment in relationships, and when that part of the relationship is absent, it can cause her to feel more distant and disconnected. A woman's emotional needs are often tied to feeling wanted, seen, and appreciated by her partner. When this part of the relationship is neglected, it can lead to frustration and confusion. Over time, this emotional gap can make her feel isolated even if you're physically present. It's essential to recognize that sex isn't just a physical act for many women, it's an expression of love, security, and intimacy. The first major change you'll likely notice is that her mood and behavior may become erratic or distant. This doesn't mean she's losing interest in you, but she may start becoming more guarded and withdrawn. A woman who feels emotionally neglected might not express herself as openly or readily as she once did. The lack of intimacy can make her question her worth in the relationship. It's important to realize that this withdrawal is often a defense mechanism. If she doesn't feel emotionally connected or cherished, she may start to protect herself by pulling away. She may not even realize that this emotional distancing is a result of feeling neglected, but it's a natural reaction to feeling unimportant in the eyes of her partner. As her emotional needs remain unmet, she may begin seeking attention elsewhere. This doesn't necessarily mean she's actively looking for another relationship, but she might look to other outlets for validation. She may start focusing more on her career, spending extra time with friends, or participating in activities she enjoys. While these aren't necessarily signs that she wants to leave the relationship, they are ways for her to find a sense of purpose and fulfillment outside of the intimacy she's missing. The problem is that over time, these distractions may replace the emotional connection she once had with you, making it more challenging to repair the relationship. Her feelings of inadequacy can also start to rise. When physical intimacy is absent, a woman may begin to feel that she's no longer attractive or desirable. If she doesn't feel physically wanted by you, it can make her self-esteem drop. She may start wondering if there's something wrong with her or if you've found someone else. These thoughts can erode her confidence, leaving her feeling more insecure and unsure of herself. It's critical to understand that this isn't about her needing reassurance for the sake of vanity. It's about her feeling emotionally and physically appreciated. Women need to feel desired, and when that feeling fades, it often leaves them questioning their worth. This sense of emotional deprivation doesn't only impact her confidence, but can begin to affect the overall chemistry in the relationship. The affection and connection that were once present might become less frequent. She may not want to hold your hand, kiss you, or cuddle in bed. Physical touch that once came naturally now feels like an awkward gesture. It's not because she doesn't love you, but because the emotional bond has been broken and she doesn't feel emotionally comfortable or safe enough to express physical affection. If the emotional needs aren't being met, the physical closeness becomes harder to initiate. As time goes on, if this emotional and physical void persists, it can lead her to feel increasingly disconnected from you. She may lose hope in the relationship if she believes that things will never improve. It's important to recognize that this isn't just a simple issue that can be ignored. The longer this gap remains, the more difficult it will be to repair. At some point, if the emotional distance continues to grow, she may reach a point where she feels the relationship is beyond repair. This doesn't mean she no longer loves you. It means she's become emotionally exhausted from trying to fill a need that hasn't been met for too long. The key here is communication. If you notice these signs of emotional withdrawal, the worst thing you can do is ignore them. Address the issue head on and communicate with her about how you're feeling and ask her how she feels. Don't just assume she'll open up on her own. She may not even fully understand why she's feeling the way she is, so it's important to gently encourage her to talk about her emotions. Acknowledge the distance, validate her feelings, and reassure her that you're committed to working through the issue together. Physical intimacy isn't just about sex, it's about emotional connection, and emotional connection requires work. It requires effort, time, and understanding. The way to heal this emotional rift isn't through a one-time gesture, but through ongoing actions. Start by rebuilding the emotional intimacy in the relationship. Show her through words and actions that you care. Reignite the spark that made her feel special in the first place. This might mean engaging in more heartfelt conversations, spending quality time together, or finding new ways to show her affection. Once the emotional intimacy is rekindled, the physical connection will follow. But without emotional intimacy, the physical relationship may continue to feel disconnected. You need to make her feel desired emotionally, not just physically. Once she feels valued and secure in your relationship again, the intimacy will naturally return. But if you ignore the emotional needs for too long, you risk losing her altogether. So don't wait too long to fix the situation. Make the effort to rekindle that emotional bond, and you'll find that the physical closeness will follow. When a woman hasn't had sex in a long time, she may begin to feel emotionally neglected, which can impact many aspects of the relationship. Intimacy plays a crucial role in creating an emotional connection between partners, and without it, feelings of distance, confusion, and frustration can arise. A woman who is not experiencing the physical intimacy she desires may start to feel unwanted or unappreciated. Over time, this emotional withdrawal can create a deeper sense of loneliness, making it difficult for her to remain fully connected to her partner, even if she still loves them. This absence of intimacy can lead her to question the strength of the relationship, which could put a strain on both her emotional state and the partnership itself. One of the first things to notice when a woman hasn't had sex in a while is a shift in her behavior and mood. Initially, she may begin to act distant or emotionally closed off. It's important to understand that this withdrawal is not necessarily a reflection of how she feels about her partner. Rather, it's a natural response to feeling emotionally and physically disconnected. When a woman isn't receiving the intimacy and affection she needs, she might not be as open or affectionate as she once was. She may stop initiating conversation or show less interest in spending time with you. This behavior isn't about rejection, but more about self-preservation. She might feel vulnerable or afraid to be emotionally available if she feels that her needs are going unmet. As the emotional distance increases, she may begin to focus more on other areas of her life to fill the void. She might invest more time in her work, hobbies, or friendships. While these activities aren't inherently problematic, they can become a way for her to find fulfillment outside of the relationship. In some cases, this shift in focus may also serve as a defense mechanism. If she feels neglected emotionally and physically, she might start to distance herself further as a way to protect her heart. She may even unconsciously begin to place more value on these other outlets because they are providing her with validation and connection that she feels she's missing from her partner. Additionally, when intimacy is lacking in a relationship, a woman might begin to experience a decrease in her self-esteem. Many women associate sex with feeling desirable and valued in a relationship. When this need is left unmet, it can lead her to feel unattractive or unimportant. She may start questioning her own worth, wondering if her partner is still interested in her or if they have found someone else. These thoughts can erode her confidence, making her feel insecure not only about her physical appearance, but also about her emotional value in the relationship. This insecurity can further damage the relationship as it can cause her to pull away even more or seek reassurance from other sources. Another potential consequence of this emotional and physical distance is the breakdown of affection. When physical intimacy is absent, it's not just the sexual act that's missing, but also the small gestures of affection, that often accompany a healthy relationship. Holding hands, kissing, hugging, and cuddling all contribute to maintaining closeness. Without this regular affection, a woman may start to feel neglected in ways she can't easily articulate. Even if her partner is still present physically, the lack of affectionate touch can make her feel emotionally disconnected. The absence of these simple gestures can lead to feelings of isolation, as she might feel like her partner is no longer emotionally available or invested in her. If these patterns continue, it can lead to long-term frustration and unhappiness in the relationship. A woman who hasn't had sex in a long time and is feeling emotionally disconnected may begin to doubt the future of the relationship. She might feel like she's putting in more effort to keep things going while her partner is becoming more distant or uninvolved. If the physical and emotional gap persists, she may eventually reach a point where she feels like the relationship isn't worth continuing. This doesn't necessarily mean that she no longer loves her partner, but rather that the lack of intimacy and connection has caused her to feel neglected and unimportant. It's crucial to recognize that emotional intimacy is just as important as physical intimacy in a relationship. If a woman feels neglected in either of these areas, it can begin to erode the foundation of the relationship. The key to preventing these negative outcomes is communication. Partners need to be open and honest with each other about their needs and desires. If a woman is feeling emotionally disconnected or neglected, it's essential to address these feelings before they lead to resentment or withdrawal. Likewise, if the physical intimacy has slowed down, it's important to talk about how both partners can re-establish that closeness. Communication is the first step in preventing the emotional and physical distance that can damage the relationship. Ultimately, rebuilding intimacy, both emotional and physical, requires effort and understanding. It's not something that will be fixed overnight, but with patience, effort, and mutual understanding, it's possible to rekindle the connection. The goal should be to make sure that both partners feel seen, heard, and appreciated in all aspects of their relationship. The absence of intimacy can create significant challenges, but by addressing these challenges together, couples can rebuild their bond and strengthen their relationship. When a woman hasn't had sex in a long time, the emotional toll it takes on her can become significant. One of the most profound effects is that she may begin to feel emotionally neglected. Intimacy, both physical and emotional, serves as a vital pillar in most relationships, providing a sense of closeness, validation, and affection. When this aspect is missing, a woman might feel isolated and unappreciated, even though she might still deeply care about her partner. The absence of sex can make her question the status of her emotional connection, feeling like the bond between the two is weakening or that her partner is no longer invested in the relationship. This feeling of neglect can often lead to resentment, as it can feel like a one-sided effort where her needs and desires are being ignored. As the emotional disconnect grows, a woman may begin to withdraw from her partner intentionally or unintentionally. She might start to close off emotionally, retreating into herself or investing time and energy into other aspects of her life. This could include work, personal hobbies, or friendships, which, while healthy outlets in moderation, may also become coping mechanisms for emotional deprivation. The lack of physical intimacy may cause her to shift focus, seeking fulfillment elsewhere because the relationship is no longer providing her with the comfort, affection, and closeness she once experienced. This withdrawal doesn't mean that she's lost love for her partner, but it does reflect the impact of unfulfilled emotional and physical needs. As a result, the relationship can begin to feel less like a partnership and more like a distant coexistence where the connection fades gradually, often without either partner fully realizing it until the distance is significant. Another consequence of prolonged absence of intimacy is the impact on a woman's self-esteem. Many women view physical intimacy as a sign of being wanted and desired. When that intimacy is lacking, she may begin to question her self-worth. She might wonder if her partner still finds her attractive or if they have lost interest in her. This insecurity can affect how she perceives herself, not just in the context of the relationship, but in her personal life as well. She may feel disconnected from her own body or unattractive, and this shift in self-perception can lead to greater frustration and self-doubt. These negative feelings can further contribute to emotional distance because a woman may feel like she's not valued or respected, not only by her partner, but by herself as well. It's an exhausting cycle that erodes both self-confidence and the foundation of the relationship. When a woman is not feeling emotionally or physically fulfilled, she may begin to display behaviors that reflect this disconnection. One of the most common ways she might express this is through a lack of affection. The absence of sexual intimacy can bleed into other areas of affection like kissing, hugging, or even holding hands. These simple gestures may become rare as she starts to protect herself from further emotional pain or rejection. This is often an unconscious defense mechanism. If a woman feels that her needs are no longer being met, she might withdraw affection to shield herself from the hurt of feeling unwanted. This withdrawal doesn't mean she doesn't still love her partner. It's often a way to protect herself from further disappointment. But over time, the lack of these affectionate gestures can make her feel increasingly distant, and it can create a sense of emotional coldness that spreads throughout the relationship. Furthermore, when a woman isn't receiving the physical intimacy she craves, she may begin to emotionally distance herself from her partner. Emotional intimacy is often linked to physical closeness, and when one is lacking, the other usually follows. If the relationship lacks physical touch or affection, the emotional bond can start to wither as well. She might stop sharing personal thoughts or feelings because she no longer feels emotionally connected. Communication might decrease, and important conversations that used to take place easily become more difficult to initiate. The longer this emotional distance continues, the harder it becomes to bridge the gap. It's like two people living in the same house, but slowly becoming strangers, where shared moments and emotional vulnerability are replaced with silence or brief, disconnected interactions. If this cycle persists, it could lead to a much deeper issue, the eventual decline of the relationship. If the emotional and physical disconnect remains unresolved, the woman might start considering the future of the relationship. She could begin to question if her partner is the right one for her, or if they even want the same things anymore. The absence of intimacy often raises concerns about commitment, and over time, a woman may feel that she deserves more, whether that's attention, affection, or emotional connection. This doesn't mean she's planning to end the relationship, but it does suggest that she's looking for change. If these issues continue to be ignored, she may ultimately feel compelled to move on in search of fulfillment, whether within the relationship or outside of it. It's important to understand that the lack of sex is not just about the physical act itself. It's the lack of connection, the absence of emotional closeness, and the feeling of being undervalued. It is a serious issue that requires attention, communication, and effort from both partners. If a woman hasn't had sex in a long time and feels emotionally neglected, the relationship may be facing significant challenges. This situation requires a deep level of understanding and commitment to restoring intimacy in all its forms. When both partners recognize the importance of nurturing their connection, they can rebuild their bond and avoid the emotional pain that comes with feeling distant and disconnected. When a woman has gone without physical intimacy for an extended period, it's not uncommon for her to feel a shift in her desires and needs. As time passes, she might start to feel more withdrawn or disconnected from her partner, which can, in turn, affect how she expresses herself emotionally and physically. The absence of sex can create a growing sense of frustration, and as a result, her emotional needs begin to demand attention in different ways. One of the most noticeable changes is that she may start to seek attention or validation from others. This doesn't necessarily mean she is looking for a new partner, but her unmet emotional and physical needs may drive her to seek compliments or attention from people outside her primary relationship. This search for validation can take many forms, such as increased social interactions, flirtations, or simply receiving affirmations that she is attractive, valued, and desired. It's a natural response to a lack of intimacy at home, where her partner's affection and attention have been insufficient. This behavior is often an unconscious coping mechanism. When a woman feels neglected or emotionally unfulfilled at home, she may not even realize that she's seeking validation from other people. It's not about cheating or breaking trust. It's about feeling like a part of herself is missing. She may begin to feel like she's being overlooked by her partner and seeking attention from others, in whatever small ways it may be, can help her feel seen, appreciated, and wanted. While this may not be harmful in itself, it's a clear sign that the relationship needs attention. If the situation continues, it could lead to complications in the relationship, as both partners may feel uncomfortable with this attention from others. However, the core issue remains the same: the lack of intimacy and connection within the relationship. This shift in behavior often acts as a signal that things need to change before deeper emotional wounds develop. As the frustration of physical neglect grows, a woman's emotional resilience may begin to diminish. She could become less patient, more irritable, and even more withdrawn, not just from her partner, but from others around her as well. The emotional toll of feeling neglected starts to compound over time, and she may begin to feel like she's stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The lack of sex isn't just about the physical act. It's a reflection of a deeper emotional disconnect. The frustration can lead to a variety of reactions. Some women might lash out or become passive-aggressive, while others may internalize their feelings, creating an invisible wall between themselves and their partner. These subtle shifts in behavior, though often dismissed, can have a significant impact on the overall relationship. Over time, this emotional strain can cause the woman to feel like she's giving more than she's receiving, which leads to feelings of resentment. It's crucial to recognize these signs early on to avoid letting small frustrations snowball into bigger issues that might eventually threaten the relationship. Another significant shift that often happens when a woman hasn't had sex for a long period is that her sense of physical and emotional intimacy begins to atrophy. Physical intimacy is an essential way for many couples to bond and connect. Without it, she may begin to feel like her partner isn't as committed, or she might wonder if there's an issue with her own attractiveness. This is particularly true when the lack of intimacy isn't discussed or addressed. The absence of regular affection can make a woman feel less desirable or even invisible. Over time, this emotional impact can erode her confidence, not just in the relationship, but in her own self-image. In some cases, a woman might even stop seeking physical affection from her partner altogether, simply because she no longer feels comfortable or wanted. This kind of emotional isolation often leads to a sense of loneliness within the relationship. And the more time that passes without intimacy, the more challenging it becomes to bridge the emotional gap. Her desire for connection may begin to shift in other areas of life. She might pour more energy into her career, her friendships, or her hobbies as a way to fill the emotional void that has developed. While finding fulfillment in other aspects of life is generally healthy, when it becomes a coping mechanism for a lack of intimacy, it can drive a wedge between her and her partner. The energy and attention she once gave to her relationship might be redirected. And as this continues, it might create a sense of distance and disconnection. This is when the relationship begins to feel less like a partnership and more like two people coexisting without truly connecting. At the same time, the woman may begin to question her worth in the relationship. If her emotional and physical needs are not being met, she might start to believe that her partner no longer values her the way they once did. This self-doubt can lead to questioning the long-term viability of the relationship itself. She might wonder if things will ever improve or if this is simply how the relationship will remain. The emotional weight of this uncertainty can be overwhelming, causing her to feel trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. She may start to feel like she's giving everything and receiving little in return, which is emotionally exhausting and can ultimately lead to a sense of hopelessness. As the frustration and emotional neglect continue, it's not uncommon for a woman to experience a shift in her overall behavior within the relationship. She may become more distant, more reserved, or even less communicative with her partner. This lack of communication can make it even harder for the couple to address the underlying issues. The longer these feelings remain unspoken, the more difficult it becomes to resolve them. Instead of discussing her frustrations, she may start bottling them up, leading to a growing sense of dissatisfaction. This buildup of emotional strain is dangerous because, over time, it can lead to the breakdown of the relationship. Without addressing the lack of intimacy, the relationship may begin to feel like it's running on empty, and both partners can become emotionally drained. Ultimately, when a woman has been without sex for a long time, it's not just the physical act that's missing. It's the emotional connection, the feeling of being loved, desired, and appreciated. Without these elements, the relationship can start to lose its spark, and the emotional toll becomes harder to ignore. It's a situation that requires attention and effort from both partners. Without open communication and a willingness to reconnect, the emotional gap can widen, leaving both individuals feeling neglected, misunderstood, and emotionally unfulfilled. The key to fixing this is to address the issue early on, show empathy, and prioritize emotional and physical intimacy as essential parts of a healthy and thriving relationship.